Guitar tips, just the tips, just for you, guitar tips. Hello and welcome to Guitar Tips. As you may know, my name is Adam Levy, and as you may know, this is my weekly video blog series. I post a brand new tip here each and every Friday. I mention my name and what it is because there's always somebody new here, or at least I hope there's always somebody new here. Maybe it's just the regular folks, and that's cool too. Whether you're new here or whether you've been riding the guitar tip train. This is tip number 89, so I've been doing it for a little while now. Anyway, whoever you are, I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for being here. Guitar Tips is brought to you by Martin Guitar Strings. Those are the clackety clank. Those are the guitar strings here on my acoustic guitar. One thing that's interesting about them is they're not all yellowy and bronze looking like normal acoustic guitar strings, but that's just part of the formulation. The winding is some kind of nickel alloy, I guess. I don't know. I've never been to the lab where they make these strings, but they tell me things, the Martin Guitar String folks, and I understand that there's some nickel. There's nickel. It's nickel. It's nickely. So they look kind of like electric guitar strings, but they're not. They're made for your steel string acoustic guitar, and they sound rich and lovely. They feel good, they last, they play in tune, they stay in tune. So those are the things that I want to get out of a guitar string, and these guitar strings, they do that thing that I want, that I need, that I live for. So thank you, Martin Guitar Strings. These are the Retro Series in a light gauge if you want to check out the Adam Levy signature set. At least I'm crossing my fingers that someday this will be the Adam Levy signature set, but that's what I use, and there you go. Guitar tips. I want to mention one other thing before I actually get to this week's tip, which is this book that I wrote a little while back when I was a younger fella. See, that's me as a younger fella. I put out this book a few years ago, and it's about playing with good time and playing with a good touch and a good tone, and it's about coming up with parts. If you're, let's say you're playing behind a singer-songwriter or in some kind of band where there's different people doing different things and you're just not sure what to play. Somebody gives you a chart that just says C, F, G, but they don't want you to just go like that. They want you to make some other kind of music. This book is meant to be helpful there. It's called Play the Right Stuff, Creating Great Guitar Parts. So as I said, I wrote it a while back, and I wanted to just bring your attention to it. You might be able to find it online as an actual physical book with a DVD, but if you're into digital delivery, meaning that you could have this on your laptop or your tablet or whatever, and just take it with you wherever you go, then you will want to go to the link below where it says Play the Right Stuff. Play the Right Stuff, and if you follow that link at the checkout, there's a place to enter the promo code, and the promo code is TIPS, T-I-P-S, as in guitar tips. So just for you, a 20% discount at checkout. So I hope that you will get yourself that book. It's I put a lot of thought into it, and I hope that you will find it helpful in your growth. That's what I hope for you, is that you will grow. That's what Guitar Tips is about, and that's what any of my courses that I've made are always about. It's about growing. So do grow. This week's guitar tip is. Right? It's time. I've been yammering here for a few minutes and we haven't even got to the tip yet. So let's get to it. Guitar tip number 89. Bury the tritone. That's right. Bury the tritone. So what this tip is about dominant chord voicings in a jazz context. And I hope that you'll find it valuable even if you're not a jazz guitar player per se. This is still just a nice thing to understand about the way that music works. So first of all, any dominant chord has a tritone in it. Like for example, this is a C7 chord. I'm playing C, G, B flat, E. Pretty common voicing for that chord. And what makes that chord sound kind of unresolved is the tritone interval in it. So that's from B flat to E. It's 3 whole steps. That's why it's called a tritone. Tri for 3. 3 whole steps is a tritone. And if you went up from E, you'd go 3 whole steps. And you'd be back at B flat. So an interesting thing about tritones is that they're the same thing when you invert them. From B flat up to E is a tritone, and from E up to B flat is also a tritone. That's not really true of well, it's not. I want to say it's not true of other intervals. It's just an interesting thing. What it is, it's dividing the octave in half. So if you look at an octave from B flat to B flat, the exact center point in between those 2 B flats is the E. And likewise, the exact center point between E and E is B flat. So that's what a tritone is. And it's part of what makes C7 sound the way it does. It's what makes C7 want to go to F. It wants to resolve. This unstable, as they say, interval wants to go like that. Or if you happened to have the B flat up high above the E, you could resolve that way. So that's what a tritone is. And the reason that I wanted to talk about burying the tritone is that one of my students had been working on all these inversions of C7, and we were jamming on a jazz tune, and every time he got to this chord, it was correct, as in if the chart says C7 and if you play this chord, that is a perfectly good chord. But it's not the sweetest sound because we've got this tritone actually up on the top of the chord, and it really draws your attention to it. So I suggested instead of that voicing to play this voicing, C, B flat, D, E. We've still got E on top. Remember, every chord has a melody note, even if you don't think of it as such. It could just be a grip, think of this as a grip, but there is a melody. The melody is the highest note. So in this voicing, we still have the same high note and we still have the same bass note. But by putting the 9 in between, this is the 9, D, putting that in between the 7 and the 3, which are a tritone apart, just warms it up a whole bunch. It's a lot easier on the ear. And that voicing is a flexible voicing. If you like, you could make it a flat 9. Still has all the properties that we need for C7. You could even make it sharp 9 if you wanted to. That's pretty tangy. Anyway, so that's kind of a cool voicing to know. And you could even just play the upper part of it, B flat, D, E, and that softens the tritone. And then if you had B flat on top, a nice way to soften that actually is to just move the E down an octave, and you get this voicing: E, D, G, B flat, which may look familiar. It's a type of an E minor 7 flat 5 voicing, or it could be considered a G minor 6 voicing. What's neat about this is it doesn't have the C anywhere in it. And if you're playing jazz and you've got the bass player playing C, you could play this voicing that doesn't have C in it, and it could really blossom the sound. Every time you play a voicing that has the root in it, it's great when it's just you backing up a singer. It's great if it's just you practicing at home. But when you've got a bass player, it's kind of a redundant note. So instead of playing a pure C7 chord with a C in it, we could lose the C and play a D. So that's one thing that's going on. And this is the voicing with the B flat on top. So really two things going on. I should point that out. One is I dropped the E down an octave to get it away from the B flat. So I dropped it down here. But even if we play this voicing, which is another inversion of the voicing I'm playing here, the tritone's on the bottom now, but we still have this rootless voicing. And those are neat to get into. And as just a very simple experiment is you could substitute 9 for 1 in just about any voicing and just see what happens. So even on, say, C major 7, here's a C major 7 voicing that you may know. We substitute 9 for 1, let the bass player play the C, and now we've got 5, 9, 3, 7. That's kind of neat. We've got, this is a C major 7 up here. We could substitute D for C, and you get this. Kind of a nice sound. So it works for dominant voicings. You can substitute 9 for 1. Works for minor voicings. This is your bass player. This is you. I'm just taking kind of familiar shapes and substituting. You have to know where the 1 is. And so anyway, that's a slightly different concept, but I just wanted to mention it while I'm talking about voicings. But there's just two other kind of voicings that I wanted to show you that fall into the bury the tritone approach. Again, on a C9, this is a C9 that also has the 6 in it. So this is E, A, B flat, D, and it's a really nice upper structure for C7, C9, C13. Also could work as an F-sharp 7 altered, if you're curious about how to apply that to an altered dominant instead of just a pure kind of sweet diatonic dominant chord. You could also use that voicing actually for E minor 7 flat 5, which was that chord we were talking about a minute ago. So, but here it is just straight up the chord, E, G, B flat, D. As a E minor 7 flat 5, you could put the A in there, and that obfuscates this tritone by kind of putting this fourth interval underneath it, and this major third on top. It's kind of a neat sound. So that'd be good to know. Again, we got a lot of uses. It's E minor 7 flat 5, substituting 4 for 3. It's an F sharp 7 altered with sharp 9 and flat 13. That's A is the sharp 9 of F, and D is the flat 13. It could be a G minor 6 chord too, and some other things. Gosh, maybe I'll make a whole other guitar tip about melodic minor scale, mode, chord stuff. But anyway, just one last voicing you might want to experiment with. It puts the tritone all the way on the bottom. So if let's get out of C, just because, I don't know, let's just get out of C. So now let's go to E7. The tritone of E7 is D, that's the 7, and G sharp, that's the 3rd. If we bury that way down low, we can put a triad on top. This is F sharp triad with the tritone below it. And that gives us 13, 9, and sharp 11. So we've taken this tangy interval and put this kind of sweet cream cheese frosting on top of it, which is just a major triad. This is like a D chord shape, but moved up to F sharp here. And that's E flat 13, sharp 11, or E Lydian dominant if you like. And you could also take that same F sharp shape and, that same F sharp triad and use this different inversion down here, and you'd still get the D and the G sharp. Guitar tunes. So that's an F sharp triad over E7. And you could also, there's another F sharp way up here, right? So we can get it. Gosh, come on, little fingers, behave. There we go. Yeah, so that's E, G sharp, D, F sharp. I'm getting the F sharp with this little sort of weird bar maneuver here. And then I'm getting the A sharp with my ring finger and the C sharp with my index. This would be much easier on an electric guitar with a smaller neck and a cutaway and all that, but it's playable. So those are the voicings. You put F sharp on top of a D and a G sharp, and that could work as E Lydian dominant or B flat 7 altered. Could work as A flat minor 7 flat 5. It's a bit of a stretch, but gosh, there's other uses as well. I don't want to again, I think that might be actually a whole other tip, kind of chord substitution, but just a neat thing to mess around with is to put the tritone on the bottom and put a triad on top. There's other applications. Here's E7 sharp 9 by putting a G triad on top. You could try putting, I don't know, experiment. Put different triads on top of the tritone and see what you can come up with. Tip yourself. Guitar tip yourself. I think I mentioned everything. I mentioned my book, Play the Right Stuff. I mentioned Martin Guitar Strings. Did I mention subscribing? There's a link down below. Big red button. Boom. Done. Subscribed. Bury the tritone. Bury it. Bury it by surrounding it with some other things or putting some other things up in the higher voices. Warm up your voicings. Make them sound tasty instead of tangy. You get the idea. Have I said too much? For guitar tips, I'm Adam Levy. Stay tuned and take good care.